Okay. Going live. Shalom. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. This presentation, we do not intend, honestly, for it to be long. Last time we did one, it went over, to my knowledge, over an hour and a half. We do not intend, having given the intro on that one, to go over that particular matter and so forth and so on. I want to, brothers and sisters, in due respect, give a shout out to my teachers. I'm going to primarily name the ones who are resting in peace. More Yosef, Adon Yishai, Adon Aharon, Chief Simeon, More Tibak, and many, many others who have influenced me to be a writer, to be a teacher, and ultimately to be a better servant before the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. On a human level, I give due respect to the people who are on the channel, who do watch the channel, who have subscribed to the channel, who have commented, liked, and shared the videos that are presented, brothers and sisters. So, be it on More Yeshaya Torah lessons, More Yeshaya history lessons, or More Yeshaya history lessons 2. Whatever channel that you all are watching this, I do appreciate the fact that you want to hear what a brother is presenting. I can be reached, brothers and sisters, at 908-587-4841. I give on a human level due respect to my lady Sarai. May the Most High be with God, shield, and protect her. I give due respect to the congregation Shomrei Habrit. May the Most High be with God, shield, and protect my brother and my friend More Yiftach of the tribe of Dan. Brothers and sisters, without any further ado, we are going to, brothers and sisters, pull up the PowerPoint. And I do again appreciate the time that you all are vesting in this particular case. The shortened version and the extended version. From the left side, there is From Everest to Alabama, The Journey of the Hebrews. You can get that book on Amazon for $12. And the longer or larger version, From Assyria to America. You can get that, brothers and sisters, on Amazon for $30 for those who are interested. Brothers and sisters, we hope and we pray that people will become authors, would want to write, will want to share information in that particular case. You can be a ghostwriter. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, brothers and sisters. You can have your stuff legally written out and presented in that particular case. So, brothers and sisters, we want to bring this out for reasonable purposes to the family and to the people. Again, I can be reached at 587-4841. Let's go on to the next slide. Lachish letter and tell Dan Stiller. All right, family, let's look at this. We're going to look at it from the laser pointer. And what you're seeing on the lower left-hand side is part of from the Lachish letters. You find this inside the museums of today, brothers and sisters. And what you're seeing on the right-hand side is part of what is called the the Danite Stela. All right, just want to point that out. Let's look. Earlier in the presentation, which dates now to last month, we spoke of Herod. People today do not too long ago attempting to debase the Israelites, asked for evidence of the Israelites outside of the Bible before the timing of Herod. And here is such. And why do we want to point that out? Herod was an Edomite. So anybody asking an Israelite of today for evidence of the Israelites before the timing of Herod shows you that, no disrespect intended, maybe they're not looking for evidence of the Edomites. In the book that is written called From Assyria to America Part 2, which you can get online, brothers and sisters, right? In that book, I explained about the Papyrus Anastasi dating to the time of Ramses, which speaks of the Edomites. But before that, you had what is referred to as the Kabiru people that were in Egypt. We've already gone over in several cases the Meneptah Stela. So, brothers and sisters, looking upon in that particular case, anyone asking, well, where do you see evidence of the biblical characters, i.e. the Israelites, before the timing of Herod, is already telling you that he or she has a particular pinpoint done in mind, has a particular focus in what they want to talk about, and is tunnel vision, perhaps. So when you go into matters such as this, then it's like, oh, well, all right. Well, what about something else? They're not even going, in many cases, to fact check what you're saying. When we speak of the Lachish letters that speak about the Israelites. All right? When you go into the Tel Dan Stela that speaks, where you see the laser pointer, Beit Dawid, and under it says, Melech Yisrael. Pardon me, above it says Melech Yisrael. My bad. My fault. Melech Yisrael. I'm going to circle that part with the pen that shows that. And we've gone over this in the past several times. The same artifact found in 1994. So when the guy, Redford, wrote his book in 1992 saying there's no external reference of David, maybe you just needed some more good old patience before the info came out. You understand? Let's go on. Hebron and Royal Stewart inscription. Now let's look at this. We're going to circle where this says Hebron. Now remember, brothers and sisters, that Hebrew is read from right to left. All right? So when we go over this thing called Hebrew Not for the Novice, Part 3, these are things we want to point out for reference purposes. And again, giving honor to the Most High. It is a so-called Sunday night. It is already after 9 p.m. Many got to go to work, if not tonight, then early in the morning. Some people got to go to school. And so I say that, why? Because any man, woman, and or having their child watching this at this time or will watch it later, you got to give, like the rap group EPMD said, give it to the people. You got to give them something for worth their time while you're asking for them to buy your book. Raise the bar in the presentation matter as well. All right. So the royal steward inscription, all right, is what we see, brothers and sisters, right here. And that, brothers and sisters, dates back to the time of ancient Israel. Now, you can go in your own time and look up biblical matters inside the British Museum, and that's where you see that, brothers and sisters. So why do we point that out? Because while at times some may say, using actually the Egyptian museum that me and my lady was in last year, oh, I don't see nothing about Yah over here. I don't see nothing about Yah over here. And they're showing things inside the museum, but you forgot to show in that same museum, which is pictured in the updated version of the Egypt Talk and Writing book, where the Meneptah still speaks of the people of Israel. We've gone over that on several occasions. Now, for those who do know, people say the Mesha Stele is something that he put his name on in Dynasty 19 of Egypt, but can be properly dated to Amenhotep of Dynasty 18. Amenhotep III is the same one that was building pyramids south of modern-day Egypt, south of Elephantine or Yeb, south of Siwa of today, brothers and sisters. So why do we point that particular point out, brothers and sisters, is this? Because that is what also speaks upon the matter of West Amara and the temple of Soleb. I mentioned that inside the book that I wrote, Egypt Talk and Writing, where they speak upon the God of the Hebrews. Not too hard to figure out what that's talking about. All right? So when they say there's no evidence and there's no archaeology, somebody done told somebody false. All right? Next slide. Thank you for the time. Hezekiah Prism in the matter of Jehu. Now, brothers and sisters, we've gone over part of the translation of the Hezekiah Prism not too long ago on the channel Shomrei Habri. And in it, Sennacherib of Assyria, who also ruled in Babylon, who also, brothers and sisters, was at odds with Tahaka, who was ruling in Egypt. All of this history correlates. Tahaka spoke about the Assyrians. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Assyrians spoke about Tahaka. Sennacherib of Assyria spoke about Hezekiah of Judah. And the Bible in the book of 2 Kings 18 speaks about Sennacherib. So what are you all talking about who want to sit there and state there's no evidence of this, that, or the third? What you're looking at on the right-hand side, and we want to sit there and circle what we're talking about, brothers and sisters, is an image of Jehu, the king of Israel, due to he not being, for what we can call a very good person, being humbled before his enemies, Sennacherib. I'm sorry, Shalmaneser III, not Sennacherib. So here we see, brothers and sisters, Jehu or his ambassador bowing down to the Assyrian king. And on this side, if you were to get the book that I wrote, From Assyria to America, I spoke upon this, where Sennacherib, a king after Shalmaneser, spoke upon the matter of Hezekiah of Judah. Now let's go back to where circle where Jehu, king of Israel, the northern kingdom, had 20 kings. Correct me if I'm wrong upon that. Not one of those kings was righteous. Not one of the kings of the northern kingdom was righteous. So what can we gather from that? It's better to be right. Next slide, please. Isaiah 11, verse 11 through verse 12 explained. Now, we're not going to read all of these scriptures here with the time allotted. Nonetheless, if you get the book that a brother wrote, From Assyria to America, which is shown, brothers and sisters, right, sorry about that, which is shown right here. You can get this book online. All right, I'm going to show this right here. I speak upon each of those scriptures. All right. Now, let's look at the side over here on this map. In the video that was done called The Egyptians and the Hebrews, done on this channel, which was a video that was speaking upon me and my lady's experience when we was in Egypt ourselves. Right? Let's look. Circled. On. On is mentioned in the Bible in Genesis, where it says Potipharah, the priest of On. The Greeks called On Heliopolis, and the Egyptians called it Ainu. Here, brothers and sisters, we want to use a different color. Let's use yellow. We have Memphis. Memphis, brothers and sisters, in the Bible was called Noph. You see that in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2. So what does this all mean, and what is the point in part in going over meticulously this kind of history through linguistics and all these kind of matters? It's for one, we want to show the evidence of the Israelites, show that the prophets of Israel were not liars, and what the prophets of Israel stated what will happen to the outcasts of the dispersed of Israel and Judah. These presentations called History Not for the Novice. And when we conclude this particular part of it tonight, because we intend to go next month and the month after that with more information, you're going to see Creator willing, and I'm thinking the Most High to be used as an example to speak upon his word in historical matters, what it leads into and what happened after 70 AD. Because Christianity, and I say this in no disrespect to Christians, may seem to want to have people thinking that 70 AD happened and the children of Israel just went into oblivion and that's it for them. Such was not the case. Next part, thank you. Isaiah 11, verse 11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord, Yah, will set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people that shall remain from Assyria, 1, and from Egypt, 2, and from Patros, 3, and from Cush, 4, and from Elam, 5, and from Shinar, 6, and from Hamath, 7, and from the islands of the sea. Now, why did I count each of those places? But you notice something about those places, brothers and sisters, is that they're all in the so-called Middle East. So you mean to tell me from the era of Solomon, then later on in the era of King Ahab, whose wife was a Zidonian woman, to all the way now down into the time of Isaiah, some centuries after Solomon, that the Israelite dispersion was not in England, it wasn't in Germany. The Israelite dispersion biblically did not go to the land of Ashkenaz, huh? No, it did not. The Israelite dispersion, brothers and sisters, did not go to the people of Japheth of Togarmah. So now when you take your own time and read the book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, you know where we're going, for those who do know. And he said that King Joseph of the Khazars stated that we, the Khazars, come from the line of Togarmah. That's Japheth. Just yesterday on the congregation Shomrei Habrit, we went over the children of Japheth. And if you notice something about Genesis 10, Japheth is just mentioned, but Ham and Shem is identified by their lands, by their languages, by their cultures, and by their nations. Japheth is just, you're there, okay, now let's get to the pinnacle, which is Israel. So the children of Israel speaking Hebrew, which is listed as a Afro-Asiatic language, is not an Indo-European language. Hebrew is not an Indo-European language. Again, we want to emphasize that. And as we pointed out before 2 weeks ago, that modern Hebrew is not even Yiddish. The Hebrew you see there on the left side is not, brother, pardon me, on the right side. Sorry about that. Is not Yiddish. We want to point that out. I want to take a brief moment at this moment. My lady said, drop that knowledge king and put fire marks next to it. You know the power of a woman? Like, he just went left field just now. We were talking about history, and we're talking about spirit too, in part. Brothers, support your lady in her dreams. Sisters, support your man in his dreams. Besides being your biggest promoter of your own self, your significant other should also be your biggest promoter. And I respect the lady in my life for such. I thank the Most High for having her in my life. When we get back, brothers and sisters, into the scriptures here, and it says that shall remain from Assyria, that's in the said Middle East, and Egypt, that's in the said Middle East, and from Patros, modern day Sudan, that's in the said Middle East, and from Cush, maybe because Ethiopia was never colonized, they don't say that's part of the Middle East, and from Elam, which is over, brothers and sisters, by Iran, in the said Middle East, and from Shinar, by modern day Iraq, in the said Middle East, and from Hamath, which is as you go toward where the Phoenicians were in the said Middle East, and from the islands of the sea. Not one place in the Bible, in the Old Testament, when it speaks about the dispersion of the Israelites, does it speak about them going to European places of their own volition. It's not until you get into later on, post-Tanakh, after the Tanakh history, that is, not post-Torah. I'm going to emphasize that because we ain't doing no, we getting rid of the law for something else. No, when we say post-Tanakh, we're talking about where the history ended in the Tanakh during the era of the Persian Empire. You will have to go into secular books, if you will, call it that, Josephus and others, Roman historians and others, Greek writings and others. And then, for instance, which we pointed out in the book From Assyria to America, also pointed out on the channel, called The Romans and the Israelites, when you read about the Hellenos papyrus. I'm going to write that in here, brothers and sisters. The Hellenos papyrus, where they try to Judify the children of Israel out of the land of Israel during the time, say, of Augustus and Tiberius of Rome, and replace them with Greeks. Ptolemies, if you will. Make it difficult for the Israelites to live in their own land by gentrification, just like they try to do today. That papyrus speaks upon said matter. So for those who are following, you'll be able to see, know, and understand what this is about. Israel scattered on their own volition in certain places. Titus of Rome later on took Israelites into European places, but Israel in their own volition was not running up into Europe in great quantities like that. We want to emphasize that. Plus, we must remember the situation when the nephew of Judas Maccabeus, named named John Hyrcanus, the son of Simon Maccabeus, made the Edomites convert to the ways of the Israelites and were called Jews as well. This is why you got to understand in history, when you take the word Jew, are you talking religious side, or are you talking about they of the true house of Israel? Next slide, please. And he, the Most High, will set up an ensign for the nations and will assemble the dispersed of Israel, and gather together the scattered of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So, brothers and sisters, what do we see in this particular case? We want to point that out. What do we see, brothers and sisters, in that particular case? Highlighter, assemble, highlighter, gather together, highlighter, different color. Why are we doing this? You'll see why in a second. Green, dispersed, scattered. Some people are saying that it was only really Judah, the tribe, or Judah, the kingdom, which would comprise the southern kingdom of ancient days, that was actually scattered and dispersed. Yet, brothers and sisters, we know good and well about assemble, gather together, dispersed, scattered. Then the Israel and Judah was needing to be assembled due to being dispersed, and they of Judah needed to be gathered together because they were scattered. So whether you have dispersed or scattered, Israel and Judah was put up out of their land. And so therefore, it became necessary for this kind of prophecy. So we just want to point that out for reasonable purposes. Now let's get into some history and then we'll close out. Thank you for the time, family. If anybody is up for it, give me a 4 if you're feeling well and if you're listening to this live. If you're feeling well and listening to this live, type in the number 4, please. Thank you. During the 9th century, the relations between the houses of Tyre, Israel, and Judah were still close. Jezebel was married to Ahab. Their daughter Athaliah was married to Joram, king of Judah. Phoenician kings were helping the Israelite kings in building. Omri was the father of Ahab. So now you got Omri, the father of Ahab, known in history as the Omride dynasty. All right? The statues of Omri are kept in the works of the house of Ahab, and you walk in their councils, that I may make thee an astonishment in the inhabitants thereof a hissing, and you shall bear the reproach of my people. So what's going on here, brothers and sisters? You have Jezebel mentioned in the book of Kings, married to Ahab. Their daughter was Athaliah. So there was an Israelite father and a Hamitic mother that was Jezebel. The Zidonians is part of the Canaanite nations of the line of Ham. Their daughter Athaliah was married to Joram, king of Judah. Let us remember these Canaanite people, such as Jezebel and the Zidonians, as this presentation goes on. I'm going to ask you, please, to remember that particular matter for a reason. Behind these words, it says in the Hebrew, all right, we want to perhaps show with a pen, right? The Shema Ebed Yerab-am. Yod Resh, we want to show with the laser pointer, all right, with the time allotted. Thank you for your time. Yerab-am was one of the kings of ancient Israel, Jeroboam in the English, or English transliteration. I promise, I'm going to, in the description when this is uploaded, put a link in the description where I translated the kings of ancient Israel by name. Yerab-am, he who enlarges the people, made the people be enlarged. Meaning people. Rab, like when you say Torah Rabbah, meaning thanks a lot. That yod that you see here in the beginning is the causative inside of its hifil stem. That's why we promote the Hebrew books. We ask you all to get them. That's why I promote my Hebrew teachers. And pick your teacher. Everybody may not be the Hebrew teacher for you. So we just want to point this out, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. Next slide, please. Jews first settled in a country now known as Tripoli. But the celebrated Arabian historian Ibn Khaldun asserts that the Nafusi an ancient tribe of Luata, the Libyans of antiquity, themselves professed Judaism, a fact which he asserts, hitherto had unrecorded by Jewish historians. There is an old tradition among the nomadic tribes of Tunisia that the Jews settled in the country before the destruction of the first temple. There can be little doubt that a colony of Jews existed in Carthage soon after the building of the city. It is impossible, however, even to conjecture what the Jewish population of Carthage may have been when that renowned city and republic challenged the Roman empire for the mastership of the world. In recent times, a Jewish necropolis, meaning a place of the dead or the cemetery, with many inscriptions in Latin and Hebrew, have been discovered in the north of the site of the city near the hill Gamont. And although this ancient rock-hewn cemetery only contains about 200 tombs, there may have been other Jewish burying places in the vicinity. Why do we point that out, brothers and sisters? That comes from a book called Jews in Africa, written by a guy, Sidney Mendelsohn. That's where that citation came from. In the book on the left-hand side, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68, you can get the shorter version that you see there for $12 on Amazon for those who are interested. So, yeah, this is perhaps why I don't do this, say, on the Sabbath, these kind of lessons, because I do want to promote the books that a brother has written as well. And I ask others to become authors, if you will. I support the writings of my teacher, Kohen Mikael, my Hebrew teacher. I support the writings of Ruth of Windsor, whom I've never met. May the Most High continue to bless both their lives. So what can we point out quickly? Jews first settled in a country now known as Tripoli. And then it talks about they themselves profess Judaism. In fact, which he asserts have been unrecorded by Jewish historians. An old tradition among the nomadic tribes of Tunisia that the Jews settled in the country before the destruction of the first temple. The first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians. You understand? Then it speaks about Carthage. On the channel that a brother is on, I spoke upon the matter of Carthage, brothers and sisters, and the Hebrew people in that case. Deuteronomy 28, verse 52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fortified walls come down, wherein thou didst trust throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. What hate zarlaka bako sha'areka ad redet komoteka hag bohot wahab zubrot asha atabo teak bahen bakar arazaka wahazirlaka bakar sha'areka bakar arazaka asha natan yodewahe eloheka lak. He shall besiege thee. Now let's look at this real quick and let's remember it for a future reference. This word here, circled, zar. And remember about that word besiege. Because from zar you get zara, zarim, mazor, Mizraim. Now, most times when people would say Mizraim, Egypt. But if you understand the word zar in root, and we see right here, brothers and sisters, about the matter of besiege, Mizraim does not mean Egypt in literal meaning, in literal translation. Mizraim means double distress. So when it said the Lord will send you back to Egypt in ships in the English, we can correctly translate that as the Lord will send thee into double distress in ships. So, brothers and sisters, these are things we want to point out for reference purposes. Next slide. notes. We were besieged several strong times. Some of the nations were the Canaanites, Philistines, Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Ethiopians, Egyptians, Moabites, Edomites, and Americans. Let's go on. The Philistine and the Canaanite. So, okay, this is, brothers and sisters here, a picture of ancient Canaan that we see on the right side. That is the family of Jezebel that we spoke about before. Part of the Zidonians, if you will. That's why I was saying when we went over that, let's please remember that. You understand? And we see the Philistines just like they did their people, the Egyptians, inside the museums where they're cutting off the nose. What you cutting off the nose for, sir? What were you trying to hide while still loving the antiquity and the artwork, so forth? You understand? So let's look. Let's continue. The Babylonian, the Assyrian. These are replicas of some of the nations that came against the children of Israel. And all of them spoke about it, you know. Babylon spoke about it. It's inside the museum, brothers and sisters, in Berlin, where they speak about Jehoiakim of Judah. So much for saying that, oh, the Israelites only cite the Bible. The Israelites only cite the Bible. That's not true. The Assyrian. We already went over that kind of matter and speaking upon it with Sennacherib. The Greek and the Roman. We already went over, brothers and sisters, the Zanan Papyrus on several occasions, dated to the time when the Ptolemies had rule over in Egypt. And you can look this up yourself. Zanan Papyrus. And it's mentioned inside the book with translation in the book I wrote, From Assyria to America. And then you got the Roman, Tacitus of Rome. Brothers and sisters, he spoke upon the matter of the Israelites' existence. Now let's look, going back here real quick, Assyria. If the Assyrian record and the biblical record do not disagree that Israel lost to the Assyrians, what nation makes up a story about losing? What are they gaining out of saying Assyria defeated us? Earlier, when we read a portion out of Deuteronomy 28, right? Remember that? He shall besiege thee to thy fortified walls come down wherein thou didst trust. The Greeks did that. The Romans did that. Josephus speaks upon that matter. So let's point this out, brothers and sisters. The Arch of Titus, which we have shown, was dedicated to Titus by his brother Domitian in 71 all the way to 81 AD. But yet they want to have people to believe, brothers and sisters, oh, bro, Israel basically ended in 70 AD. No, what you try to do is replace Israel with the church, the authority and the position Israel had given to Jesus Christ, and just try to wipe away the memory of Israel in the name of Christianity. But it's not going to work, because the nations that came up against Jerusalem, i.e. Israel, will surely be consumed. That's in Jeremiah and in Zechariah. So just as much as the Most High spoke against Israel, so did he speak against the nations that come up against the children of Israel. The ancient Egyptian, the Arab, both came up against our people in the matter of oppression. Because you read about Shishak of ancient Egypt and what he did. And you see that in the book of Chronicles during the time of Rehoboam of Judah. And the Arab slave trade, they became friends with the Portuguese and what they was doing. Khalid Muhammad, one of the few Muslims that even spoke upon the Arabian slave trade. You understand? Next slide, brothers and sisters, and we're going to close out soon enough. DayNightPublications.com. That's my website. DayNightPublications.com. So we're asking you all to subscribe to the channel. We're asking you all, brothers and sisters, to go to the website to get more information And what you see on the left-hand side is called the Moabite matter. Let's look. The Mesha Stele. It says in part. Let's see what this says. I am Mesha, son of Chemosh Gad, king of Moab, the Debonites. Chemosh was one of their gods. My father reigned over Moab 30 years, and I have reigned after my father. And I have built this sanctuary for Chemosh in Karka, a sanctuary of salvation. For he saved me from all aggressors and made me look upon all my enemies with contempt. Omri was king of Israel and oppressed Moab many days. Let's stop right there. We don't have to read this whole thing. It says, and we want to highlight certain things, if we will, from the Mesha Stele, such as saying this, right? Omri, king of Israel. Then in the next part, it goes on to say, and the men of Gad dwelt in the country of Atarot. Who are the men of Gad, brothers and sisters? They were of Gad, of the nation of Israel. Gad is one of the tribes of the Israelites, and it says they dwelt in Atarot. Do you know that in the Bible, in Numbers chapter 32, it says the same thing of the tribe of Gad? The Bible in the book of Numbers said that Gad dwelt in Atarot. And so, brothers and sisters, does the Mesha Stele. So when we go over things, can you show anything before the matter of King Herod? Yes. You understand? And then it goes to say, and the king of Israel fortified Yahaz. Yahaz, brothers and sisters, is by the vicinity in ancient days of the tribe of Reuben. So when you know where Moab was, south of Reuben, and Reuben is south of Gad, and Gad is south of Manasseh, or being on the east side of the Jordan, you see exactly what is being spoken about. So if you got nations talking about the Israelites, such as we see here inside of the Mesha Stele, and Mesha, king of Moab, is mentioned in the Bible in 2 Kings 3. That's why we say, and it's not to sound arrogant, history not for the novice. We want to raise the bar about what we're talking about. So Israel will become known in history and not a mystery. Wondering, oh, we just have only Deuteronomy and we need to repent. Yes, we need to repent. But when people want to come against Israel scholastically, linguistically, and collegiately, we definitely want the information to be known. Glory to the Most High. That the truth of Yah, as it says in the book of Psalms 117, dwells forever. Next slide, please. Us here in the Western Hemisphere. As pointed out on this and other channels, the Hebrews were exiled from their land. Time Life Books speaks on how the Roman leader Hadrian, who was a Spaniard, changed the name of Jerusalem to Alia Capitolina, and the land of Israel to the name Palestine. You know them Time Life books they used to sit there and talk about on TV? There's one of them called The Holy Land, and in it, it speaks about what Hadrian of Rome did. In the 9th century BCE, the people from Tyre went from there to settle in what is now Tunisia. Why, brothers and sisters, and we want to use a different color, does that become important? In what is now Tunisia. Part of the people from Tyre were Israelites. Tunisia. Where did we see Tunisia before? Let's go back up for line upon line. And I'm not saying that my presentation is the book, but we see, brothers and sisters, Tunisia right here. There is an old tradition among the nomadic tribes of Tunisia that the Jews settled in the country before the destruction of the first temple. So what do we see there? Tunisia is there. That's in northern Africa. That is where Carthage is. Why do you think, though not everyone may agree, that people were saying that Hannibal was from the tribe of Asher, of the nation of Israel, and that the leader that went of the Moors of Tariq and crossed the Strait of Gibraltar in the 8th century AD, mind you, by some was from the tribe of Simeon. That has been stated in History Matters. So we're not just coming up only dealing with the Bible, because the scriptures itself says 2 or 3 witnesses establishes a matter. In the 4th century BCE, it is said they, according to Hanno in the Periplus, went from Carthage to Gambia. Reynolds, in his book Stand the Storm, stated that the distance from Gambia to West Indies is 3,200 miles. Cowley, in his book Black Cargoes, stated that Basel Negroes were brought from the West Indies to Virginia. What are we getting into, brothers and sisters? Let us look and go with this matter with the laser pointer. 9th century, people from Tyre in northern Israel went to settle in Tunisia. From Tyre to Tunisia. The 4th century BC, in the Periplus, went from Tunisia to Carthage. Pardon me, because Carthage is in Tunisia. So I want to point that out. All right? So let's do that. From Tyre to Tunisia. Right? Then, while in Carthage, to Gambia, which is in Western Africa. So when you go in your own time and get a book you can on Amazon, when it says, according to Hanno in a book called The Periplus, they who were in Tunisia went to the Gambia. From Gambia to the West Indies is 3,200 miles. While in the West Indies, being called Negroes, they were brought to Virginia. See the connection? That's why we want to get our studying done, brothers and sisters. Next slide, and we're going to close out. The reading of the slave advertisement on Tuesday, March 5th, 1833. Why does that stand out to me? March 5th, not to be too personal, is my government birthday, or my birthday according to this government, even though in the Hebrew calendar, it was Adar the 17th. My Hebrew month of birth is Adar, the last month in the Hebrew calendar, the 17th. But according to the calendar of the society we in, it's March 5th. So let's see what happened a century and more before I was born with our people. On Tuesday, March 5th, 1833, at 1 p.m., the following slaves will be sold at Potter's Mart in Charleston, South Carolina. Miscellaneous lots of Negroes, mostly house servants, some for field work. Conditions: half cash, balanced by bond, bearing interest from the date of sale, payable in 1 or 2 years to be secured by a mortgage of the Negroes. An appraised personal security auctioneer will pay for the papers. A valuable Negro woman, accustomed to all kinds of work, is a good plain cook, an excellent dairy maid, washes and irons. She has 4 children, 1 girl about 13 years of age, another 7, a boy about 5, and an infant 11 months old. 2 of the children will be sold with the mother, the others sold separately. Did we just read this carefully? A valuable Negro woman. You mean they was putting a man for the woman how long now? This is dated to 1830s, brothers and sisters. Accustomed to all kinds of work. Is a good plain cook. Has 4 children, a girl about 13 years of age, another 7, a boy about 5, and an infant 11 months old. So 2 sold with her and 2 sold separately. That's what happened with the children of Yisrael, our people, our ancestors, brothers and sisters. It is best suits the purchaser. This is documented. We ain't making this stuff up. A valuable blacksmith, wife and daughter. The smith is in the prime of life and a perfect master of his trade. His wife, about 27 years old, and his daughters, 12 and 10 years old, have been brought up as house servants, and as such are very valuable. Also for sale 2 likely young Negro wenches, which is their way of trying to say the B word, no disrespect intended about our people. But I wanted to cite this as written out. One of them is 16 and the other 13. Both of them have been taught and accustomed in the duties of house servants. The 16-year-old wretch has one eye. A likely yellow girl, about 17 or 18 years old, has been accustomed to all kinds of house and garden work. She is sold for no fault, sound as a dollar. House servants, the owner of a family described herein, will sell them for a good price only. They are offered for no fault whatsoever. But because they were done without, the money is needed. He has been offered $1,250. They consist of a man 30 to 33 years old who has been raised in a general Virginia family as a house servant. Now, why do we stop there? A Virginia family. Ain't that where the people, according to Cowley in his book, stated that Negroes were brought from the West Indies after they were brought from the Gambia, after they were brought by their own volition from Carthage, after they scattered to Northern Africa? See the connection, brothers and sisters? This is talking about something being done in South Carolina, being raised in a genteel Virginia family as house servant, carriage driver, etc. And in all, it says, which he excels. His wife is likely a range of 25 to 30, raised in like manner as chambermaid, seamstress, nurse, etc. Their two children, the girls of 12 and 4 or 5. They are bright mulattoes of mild traceable dispositions, unassuming manners, and of genteel appearance, and well worthy of the notice of a gentleman of fortune needing such. Also, 14 Negro wenches ranging from 16 to 25 years of age, all sound and capable of good day's work in the house or field. That's the conclusion for this presentation. I don't think we can go any further. What I just read came from here when it says a thing, brothers and sisters, by Richard Clagett, a valuable Negro woman. I wanted to type it out so we can sit there and see. The reading, the slave advertisement. See who they was really going for? The women, the girls. The women, the girls. That's what they wanted, brothers and sisters. Be you mulatto, light skin, high yellow, red bone, whatever you want to call it, or be you, brothers and sisters, like the Zanan Papyrus described Israelites as protruding lips, fiery complexion, dark skin as well. So we want to get the Willie Lynch thing out of the way. We present this not for somber, not for sad, but for remembrance, brothers and sisters. The Most High, through the prophet Moses in the Bible, said, remember Amalek. Do not forget. He told Saul, I remember what Amalek did to my people when I brought them up out of Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek. There's over 300 years between the situation in Exodus 17 and the situation that you read of in the book of Samuel, chapter 15 and chapter 16. Over 300 years. Brothers and sisters, 1865 is not even 300 years ago. Lincoln, in his second inaugural address, stated that if every drop of blood by the lash, meaning about us as slaves, has to be replaced by the sword, meaning what happened with the people in the Civil War, he said, the judgments of the Lord are righteous altogether. They wanted to not talk about slavery much, but we know that that's not all our history. we know sadly it's just in our history. But we don't want to be minimalist. We don't want it to be forgotten. We want this to be known, brothers and sisters, for education and edification purposes. Don't get angry, brothers and sisters. Find out what the slave master did not want to happen and do that. In the movie South Central, and I'm closing out upon this, the guy who was with the other guy in prison said what? It's the inner anger of the black man. So we don't want to operate on that. Again, these presentations is not to make people angry or sad, but it's for information, education, and enlightenment. So that way we can learn where we came from, what we've gone through. And again, know and understand, brothers and sisters, what the slave master did not want. Because what he did not want was for us to read. What he did not want was for us to come together. What he did not want was for us to love each other. Would they separate that man and his wife, as we read over here? Her husband here and his wife, they're 25 or 30 years old or something like that. Do you think they have no problem separating that? So if you know the slave master wanted the man and the woman separated, and if we're not slaves no more, and if we have not taken the position of the slave master, black man and woman come together. With that, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My number again, 908-587-4841. 908-587-4841. Shalom. Most High bless.